Almost Famous Enough is a proud sponsor of Music Day in Canada. Music Day in Canada is a national campaign and celebration created by the Lemon Foundation to spotlight the people, places, and communities that power Canadian music. Through live events, artist showcases, community partnerships, and digital storytelling, the campaign uplifts Canadian talent and supports the sustainability of local music ecosystems. The campaign is open to everyone, from venues and artists to brands and fans, with each region contributing its own voice to the national story. Check out musicdayincanada.com or look for the link in our podcast notes of each episode.
It seems to me now that breaking a podcast into seasons, air quote seasons, is about taking forced breaks. As in, you need a break. You are running out of steam. You have no one booked. That was meant to be a little funny, so I won't qualify how true it is for me. But I should also be transparent about how important the process has been for me to be patient, to trust the process. So finding myself at the start of a second season is satisfying, I don't mind saying. And what other way to start than with an episode I was hoping to have during the first season, but timing would bring this guest to us now. Serendipity. You know what else is serendipitous? A series of events occurring or discovered by chance in a happy or beneficial way. That's the Google definition at least. But how about this example? A guy, let's say me, hears the song on the radio and feels that's too indie for regular alt-rock radio. I like it. But then it occurs to him, me, that there are a lot of songs I get interested in because they sound like they don't quite belong. Not in a bad way, but in a very cool way, alongside the battalion of Foo Fighters and Mother songs in regular rotation. And then it really occurs to him, me, that the song doesn't belong because it has hints of something that I don't think, on its own, alt-rock radio would ever play. Regular rock radio, for that matter. And so I goes on a quest to hear more than just this one song, and confirms that the discography supports something else, some other substance in the song catalog, and the alt-rock radio single is actually the anomaly. But then I can't seem to stop there because there is still something not quite aligned. And this guy, me, is struck by the collection of songs lined up against themselves, not other radio rotation regulars, and how these songs require a new investigation into what's being heard. So a kind of detective work of the subconscious as this guy, me, ponders and listens and ponders about how the songmaker has so cleverly created a sound that avoids the stigma of being an era copycat, a throwback, avoiding specificity and instead wearing the woven piece like a vintage coat he actually inherited from his grandpa, not purchased from a Goodwill. So, serendipity happens when the events of this discovery lead our guy, me, to realize I wasn't searching for a specific influence to satisfy him, me, not a Bob Dylan or a Lou Reed, but someone who could never possibly have been an influence, yet carries all the correct specifics. And then to go look up the albums, the songs, and experience exactly what I've experienced from this current artist and album, and find total serendipity, even though I've probably lost you. So let me pull this back together. This is extreme beating around the bush, and I'm sorry. It's either the very wrong or very right way to start a new season. But I listened to Boy Golden repeatedly until I serendipitously connected him to Larry Norman. Larry Norman was one of the true rebels of Christian rock, the OG of Christian rock, the only one maybe until Stryper in the 90s who stood shoulder to shoulder with his peers, a perfect blend of those peers, with 70s blues influenced guitar and piano driven anthems and ballads, rolling lyrical satires on politics and personalities. Boy Golden broke out on alt-rock radio with the groove-heavy Katie and Lunchmeat, but had already been turning out rolling blues-anchored satire like the Church of Better Days. Boy Golden was an incarnation that only this guy, me, could have ever understood, arrived at, pieced together. Serendipity is, after all, a personal experience, a very personal experience, when a series of occurrences, in this case over 35 years, align in a very satisfying way. Boy Golden is the artistic persona of Liam Duncan, a Juno-nominated Manitoban artist, producer, and musician. Boy Golden really elevated this satisfying serendipity during this conversation, catching me in post-vacation Zen state and inspiring me with routines and practices that I think we could all benefit from, feeling more creative and more present. My name is Glen Erickson. This is Almost Famous Enough. Thank you for spending your time with us. This is Boy Golden.
Thank you so much, Liam, for taking a little bit of time to join me here. So you're at home, I presume,
yes,
at
sir.
the current moment. Okay. And you had a release, you had an EP release with Six Shooter in March, and summer's coming up. So I guess my first question when I talk to somebody and where they're at is, where are you in the cycle of of the job, of the business right now? Touring versus recording versus promoting, all that stuff.
I just finished making a new record, so I'm kind of off cycle for touring at the moment. But I guess where we are in the cycle right now is just like making all the plans, making all the videos, making all the photos, because the record's done and everything else is done. So we're just kind of in that stage.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let me ask you this, because this keeps coming up with a lot of artists I'm talking to as sort of the side joke of the life now of, you're a part-time musician, part-time content creator, or at least the pressure to be, so to speak. I'm wondering where that sits with you and then how you do things, or how much, you get involved in that, or you feel the pressure about it, or have people who are doing it. Where does that sort of sit or resonate with you?
Yeah, it's kind of a big question. I mean, I don't think of myself as part-time anything. I've full-time do this all the time. But I just think it's like, to some extent, it's going to be part of the job. To what extent it's part of your job is up to you. For me, I think I have a fairly good balance with it right now. Certainly, I don't have a very natural talent at it. I would love it if I was just naturally good at making things that people liked to watch on the internet, but it's not my... I kind of think on some level it helps if you're a big consumer of that content to make it, to know what people like. And I kind of make every effort in my life to consume as little of that kind of content as I can. And I feel like it makes me feel really disconnected from it. So for the most part, I try to just make things that I like and then put those out. And I'm open to trying new things too. I mean, I think one thing about the internet is it's a bit of a sandbox. Always has been, continues to be, and you can try stuff on, and if it doesn't really feel right, then you don't have to do it again. Would I love to be the kind of artist that doesn't really ever have to make anything? Yeah, of course. But I also am the kind of artist that I need to grow more in order to have like a really sustainable livelihood. So I'm ready. I'm ready to do the work if I need to.
Well, I mean, this was actually a question down the road on my sheet, but that's okay. I don't mind jumping in right where we are, because one thing I've noticed about you, and when I've sort of looked back at some of the stuff, either that you've put out, obviously, but also just things that you've said in other conversations, there's a lot to your take on creativity, which I'm really, really interested in. And so I led with the joke about being a content creator in the current age of the musician, and, jostling for how much of your time either of those can take, depending on who you are. But, something you said there just sort of jostled that for me, which is, if you're in the role of creator and have a creative career, learning your willingness to learn all that kind of stuff, where does that sort of sit with you in your day to day, sort of there's a lot more. Well, let me put it this way, even like you were saying, I'd be happy maybe for other people to do it. But you have a sense of humor that's really obvious in a lot of your stuff that comes out, both in the music, but I've seen you play live at a folk fest here in Edmonton, and just in how you are on stage and with the people that are around you, and in visuals. So you obviously have a lot of input on a lot of that kind of stuff. So how do you feel like, the whole job then is tapping into your creativity, or do you feel like that's a sort of an open door?
That's a good question. I don't really feel like the whole job taps into your creativity. I think my job as an artist is really to write something that feels true to me. And I would be doing that whether or not I was doing this for a job. I was writing songs that felt true to me when I was working at a bar, when I was shoveling snow, when, I've been doing that for a long time. And I don't think I would ever stop doing that, even if I decided that doing this as a career wasn't for me. So I kind of find it personally helpful to separate the two a bit and go, well, listen, I need to make stuff so that people engage with the things that I make that I really do care about. And so I just try to develop that side of my brain as well, because I feel like, as I was saying before, because I'm not a big consumer of that sort of content, I feel like I lack taste with it a bit to some extent. And I sometimes don't know if what I'm making is like bad. Whereas when I'm writing, I have a pretty good sense. It's like an intuitive sense. I don't need to question it of whether what I'm writing feels right. But when I'm making stuff for the internet, I sort of lack that sense of, hey, does this feel right, or does this not feel right? So I've been working on developing that sense over the last 5 years, I would say. And I've learned a lot. I mean, I've done a lot of things on the internet that I look back on and go, whew, that was pretty cringy. But I don't mind. I don't mind embarrassing myself every once in a while and feeling embarrassed. I think that's fine. I think if you're scared to be embarrassed, you've probably already lost. You gotta put yourself
I mean,
out
that's a really good perspective. Actually, I think, because I hear a lot of the discomfort from people about being pushed to do so much more content creation themselves as a way of promoting and building awareness in the way that it looks today. But I think, like what you said there, probably really identifies where that discomfort comes from, is that we, as musicians, we develop a really strong shit meter. We've been doing it since we were young. But if you're in an area where you don't have a developed shit meter, you're just going to get uncomfortable, right? Like, it's just not a comfortable space to be in. That makes a lot of sense. Let me jump back, because I'm really just sort of interested in kind of how you got to where Boy Golden is right now. And so, born and raised Brandon is what I see. Manitoba, like the quote unquote suburb of Winnipeg. I think it's kind of funny. It's like what, like 45 minutes drive?
No, it's 2 hours.
Is it? Why did I always think it was 45 minutes? Okay, never mind. It's not a suburb
because you zone out
Winnipeg.
when you're driving through it.
That could be. That
it
could
definitely
be it.
doesn't
It was
feel like a suburb. If growing up there, going into Winnipeg felt like, oh, going into the big city,
Yeah, I grew up in a small town called Rosetown, Saskatchewan, that was like about 50 minutes outside of Saskatoon. And
I know exactly
that
where
drive,
Rosetown is, actually.
Oh, do you? The heart of the wheat belt?
You want to know something weird? I had a lot of when I was younger, I flirted with a lot of different hobbies, and for a while, I doubt you could still find it, but for a while I was touring, I would write blogs about the history of whatever random town I was driving through that I thought was interesting, and I remember writing one about Rosetown. So that's why I know where Rosetown is.
That's awesome.
I don't remember much about what I learned. But.
Yeah, I don't know what you would learn either, actually, now that I think about it. But it was like, as a small kid, that felt like a giant drive, and it was 50 minutes, I think. But yeah, Saskatoon felt like the real big city. So you're growing up there, and you make the move to Winnipeg at some point because you get kind of the taste for music. So I guess my first question is were there things around you or family or people or the influences that started that taste for music, and that jump to kind of really just be more around the music scene and stuff? I mean, I've seen, you see different people, right? When they're growing up, the ones that kind of like just go all in with the music stuff right away, and then the ones that dabble, right, while they still are going to school and doing all the things to appease their parents and stuff. I'm wondering what version of that was for you in your development.
Yeah. So my main influence in that regard was the band I was in high school. It's called the Middle Coast with my friends Roman Clark and Dylan McDonald, who both are still professional artists. And we started touring right out of high school. We played over 600 shows together. So I would say we all three of us landed more on the like doing it immediately kind of thing. I graduated high school a year early, and then yeah, my parents were like, well, you can't just hang around. You got to go to school. So I went to school for a year for music, and then but it didn't really stick. I kind of didn't get as much out of it as I wish I did, because I really just wanted to play with my fun rock band. So that's what we did, and we went on tour and just started doing the DIY kind of music scene thing.
Was that still in Brandon, or you had jumped into Winnipeg?
Yeah, no. Yeah, okay. I mean, honestly, we booked ourselves so busy we didn't need to be in. We didn't feel like we needed to be in Winnipeg yet, but then all of a sudden we did, because we were playing gigs in Winnipeg several times a month, and so it just made, and we were starting to make friends there, and it was just obvious there was no way we could stay in Brandon. And then at some point that happens in Winnipeg too. Dylan and I both moved to Toronto to try and grow what we were doing, and then the pandemic happened, and there was no work, and then you were just paying a lot of money for an apartment in Toronto where you couldn't do anything. So we all ended up moving back to Winnipeg, and that was while I was still in Toronto during the pandemic was when I recorded the first Boy Golden album in my apartment there, and then I finished it in my friends' bedrooms and stuff here in Winnipeg, and then it sort of just kind of took me on a ride for the last 5 years. So I haven't moved back to Toronto, and I don't really plan to. But it's still, no matter where you are, it's with music, it's helpful to get out there. So spent a couple months in Nashville this winter, probably going to go back again next winter. You know, music is so much fun for that, because it's just so easy to meet people.
Yeah. I mean, Winnipeg has a great reputation of incredible fertile ground for musicians, and of like all kinds of genres, but just musicians in general. So I suppose that would be a pretty comfortable jump back, right? So I mean, even you being like, we booked 600 shows with this band when we were like teenagers. That's not normal. Like, that's a lot. That's a pretty cool experience to have at such a young age. Were you already getting exposed to the business because you were able to book that much? Like, you're talking to either managements or agents or people like that?
Yeah, we tried so hard. We tried way too hard. we did end up having a manager. We had an agent. We toured in Japan. There was like this guy in Nashville that took us to a party and told everyone there he was going to win a Grammy with this band, and like all that weird shit. So we got exposed to the
crazy
business.
What that does to you, man, when someone does like that, right?
It
says something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for all those experiences, because first off, I have a pretty good head on my shoulders when it comes to the business side of things, which a lot of artists don't, because either they just don't come by it as easily, or no one ever gave them the chance to learn about it. But yeah, we all did it ourselves, so we all got to learn about it ourselves. I used to write grants for other people. I kind of honestly thought I would end up on the business side of music, because I came to writing songs quite late in my life. I was very blocked around that for a long time, until I was 21. And so when I was in my late teens and very early 20s, I was mostly working on the business side of things, and I was recording, producing, and mixing at a very amateur level. But that grew into, I still just do that today, basically, but I also write songs and have my own career. So it's a strange life.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, there's so many different skill sets, like you said, like when we buy that, like when we're young and we buy that big label, big name album, you read the credits, you like starting to get to know who all the people are. The credits are a mile long, right? Because there's a different person for every single one of those roles. But like you said, when you're young, I mean, that's an amazing skill and gift, I think. The opportunity to learn how all those hats work, to wear them, and even learn the skill set behind them, and see what road they take you down. So it's in Toronto that you start developing the Boy Golden, or were you already working on the Boy Golden sort of version of yourself before that point?
I was already working on it, but I didn't know what it was. I wrote my first record and released it myself in 2018 or 2019 or something. I can't actually quite remember now. Ooh, I have it right here because I just found I was cleaning out my garage and I found 200 of these things, and I was like, I actually don't know what to do with them, so I ended up just donating them, but it was released in 2019 apparently, according to it.
Yeah, there
I kept 5 for a memento. What are you supposed to do with all this little crap?
I know, I've been through the same thing. I had a band too, and
yeah,
for years I kept those, the boxes the CDs ship in, those long narrow ones. Yeah. And I was like, what the hell, man? Like, we've already done our reunion shows. I don't know what to do with these anymore.
Exactly. It's kind of sad, but anyways, yeah, so I was already working on it. And then this album, that first album of mine, was really important for me, but what I realized looking back is that I wasn't really writing from the truest place that I could at that point. When I listen to those now, which I don't do often, but I have, I just hear the influence of other people more. And then at some point after that came out, and like nothing really happened, and it was a lot of work, and it was just sort of like meh. I was like, man, I'm taking this shit way too seriously. And then I just started going into I was like, the only part about this that matters to me is making something that I love. And so I just started to go into the studio. I shared a studio with this other fellow, and I went in every second day, or 3 or 4 times a week, usually at 9 in the morning, and I would just try and make something new every time. And that's what Boy Golden came out of, was just that creative, like a creative practice, really, is what I consider it.
Yeah, that's a real discipline. A lot of people don't, I think, have that approach in their story, which is pretty cool. Like, so, okay, I read also, by the way, that your name, the Boy Golden name, which I thought was a great little story, that's actually Golden was your mother's maiden name. So when you're were you trying to actively think of her name, or was this one of those things where you're just like in the shower and it just presents itself to you like that's the name?
Yeah, it was that. I don't remember how I came up with it. It was like, I remember I wrote the song Church of Better Days, and I was like, I think actually that's what the whole world is. And then I was like, and I think my name is Boy Golden. I don't know. I don't remember. I mean, I was stoned all the time back in those days, so sometimes my memories are a bit fuzzy. But yeah, I don't remember where it came from. I just remember that it felt right. And then when I told other people, they were like, yeah, that's cool. You know?
Yeah.
I remember distinctly my friend Cody, who was recording some percussion on the Church of Better Days album, was like, normally I kind of hate everything like that, but I actually like that one. And I was like, well, I think that's about as good of a vote of confidence as I'm going to get. So,
yeah. So the writing for that album you're describing as like you making a shift in what you felt like you're like, I got to stop taking this so seriously. So that sort of shift for you personally is really what was part of the fuel behind what you started writing that became that entire album.
Yeah.
So actually I'm going to just zero on this first, and then I have some other stuff. But what I'm really so curious about with people is you've had this experience of a song on that first kind of record of under Boy Golden, like blowing up, right? So you've had the experience of KD and Lunch Meat kind of blowing up gets on the radio, it starts charting on the radio, you start getting different avenues. And I don't know, I guess I'm curious, like, sometimes those things are a really fast snowball down the hill, and sometimes they were a slow burn. And either way, they sort of present sort of different unique challenges to an artist that I think sometimes people are really curious about. And I'm curious what that was like for you. And I guess I'll let you know what part of my angle is, like full transparency, is just I'm always curious if that was the song that you would have thought would have been the thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember hearing an interview with Edward Sharp about that song Home that totally blew up and stuff for them and became that big song for them in all kinds of avenues and alt radio, which they never would have thought they were going to play on and stuff. And hearing him say he, you know, when they're writing songs, they didn't finish that song and think, oh yeah, this is the one. And I'm curious what your experience with that song has been.
Yeah. I mean, when I wrote it, I didn't think anything of it at all. I guess I try to keep my mind pretty free of judgment around things that I just made. And I wrote it like some random Tuesday morning, you know, just like I was saying.
Yeah.
I was going in there every couple days and making something new, and that's what I made that day. But I will say that the more I sat with the demo I made, the more I was like, I think this one has some legs. And then when I made the final version, I mean, there's a reason it's the first song on the album. You know, I knew it was catchy and poppy and fun, and I thought people would like it. I think it was going to go on the radio? No. I mean, it's mixed in mono.
Yeah, I saw that. That's incredible.
You know, it's like it was not made to be on the radio. Nothing about my music has ever been radio focused, which I'm sure some people I work with would love it if more of it was, but it's just that's not.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You can, but I'm not going to.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you made the statement about you approach all these things without judgment. It's interesting. That's the second time I've heard that this week. I think I was listening to, I can't place it, another podcast with an artist who was talking about that exact same phrase of it's the only way to remain sort of consistent and pure in their approach is to not judge themselves in the middle of trying to create something.
Totally. Even afterwards, you know,
Yeah.
like I struggle with it sometimes. I feel like I just went through a phase of a couple of weeks, maybe even a couple of months, where I just was feeling so I was feeling so like embarrassed of all of my past work and just feeling like I'm just so shit, you know. What am I doing, you know? And really, like, what is that? Like, who is that helping, you know? And all that makes me do when I sit down to write, which I still do all the time, all that makes me do is makes it harder. It makes it harder to get to anything that is true. It makes me want to self-aggrandize or be more humble than I am or whatever. It just makes me want to compensate for my own insecurity. And so really, for me, the only way is to try and just stay present and try not to judge. You know, because you don't know. You don't always know what's best. I'll say that too. Like most of the time, the song that I think is the best song isn't. And a lot of the time when I finish a song and I'm so excited, I'm like, oh my God, I just wrote a smash. And then I play it for someone else and they're like, yeah, it's pretty good, you know? And then I sit with it for a couple of weeks and I'm like, God damn it. No, I didn't. And it's funny that like, most of the best songs I've ever written, I write and then I don't feel anything about them. Maybe because I stayed in that spot. I'm not really sure why that is. I viscerally had that experience, like writing for this album I just made, where I was doing a bunch of co-writes. I think I wrote like 23 songs in February, leading up to this. You know, and I already had. I'm a pretty consistent writer. It's part of how I do things. So I already had 70. And then I just like wrote all these extra ones while I was preparing to make this recording. And I remember this day coming home from this co-write and being like so pumped. I was like, man, that was so fun. And I really, 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 really like this song. And I sent it to my friend Fontaine, who I pretty much send all of my songs to. And she was like, yeah, it's pretty cool. And I was like, what do you mean it's pretty cool? This is amazing. And then a few days later, I was like done working for the day and just chilling. And I was just like strumming my guitar a little bit. I think I was watching TV and playing. Then I came up with something on the guitar and I was like, that's pretty cool. Paused it, wrote a song in like 15 minutes, sent it to the producer, you know, went to bed. Next day, he's like, I love this. And I'm like, really? Like, yes, I love this. And then we recorded it. And now it's like one of the singles. It's the title track of the album. It's, you know what I mean? So it
Yeah.
doesn't help to put a
Yeah.
bunch of pressure on it. It doesn't help to judge yourself. It just doesn't.
Yeah. I was listening to that Song Exploder podcast, been around forever, and the artists talk about their songs. And the number of times I've heard an artist say, this one almost didn't make the album. And now it's the one they're talking about like 12 years later,
Yeah.
is often surprising. I wonder also a little bit, Liam, if that sort of, like you said, you very often don't have any feeling about it one way or the other. I'm wondering if that comes from your ability to become such a disciplined songwriter, right? A lot of people still just write out of their feeling or their impulse, right? They pick up the guitar when they are in a mood or feel like a burden to communicate something versus that discipline. Like I meet a lot of country people, right? So they do all these rights in Nashville where it's such a disciplined, you know, it's like book me on my Calendly. I have a writing session available at 10 and 2, you know, and that it on the surface looks like it takes the feel out of it, but I think there's a value to how you're accomplishing what you're accomplishing for
100%.
sure. Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah.
so silly when people are like look down on people who do writing sessions or whatever. I'm like, you don't know when the thing is going to come. Why not sit at the desk? And if it comes that day, at least you'll be ready. You know?
Yeah.
It's like the amount of times I feel like, oh my God, I have something in me right now that should come out, and I'm like at a grocery store or like completely unable to do it. That's so frustrating. Like, why would you wait? Just sit down and do it. And
Yeah.
anyways, but it's also fun and beautiful that other people feel so inspired. I feel like I always have something I can communicate. Part of my practice is I do morning pages every day. So I write 3 pages in like a little journal like this of longhand stream of consciousness thought every day when I wake up. And there's always stuff up there. You've got your thoughts are going all the time. There's always feelings, and so that's sort of how I try and stay connected with it. I will say that I go
Yeah.
through. There are natural phases where I'm like not writing as much. It's really hard to write on the road when you're at our level because it's just so all-consuming. And then
Mm.
sometimes when I'm at home, I just like it's not the time, like even right now,
Yeah.
I feel like I put so much of myself into the record I just made. It was 3 years of writing, probably well over 100 songs, whittled down to 12. It's like, yeah, I feel a little bit empty right now of songs,
Yeah.
and I'm cool with that. It's like, who
Yeah.
am I trying to impress? But I, I still sit down with the guitar and I try and write, but I haven't finished a whole song since March probably, but I have dozens of little ideas because I still sit down to write. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great way to describe it. And again, like, I mean, to be completely honest, this is why I do the podcast, Liam, is like, I just think you learn so much from hearing how somebody else has done it or experienced it, right? And the obvious takeaway to me there is that, yeah, you have your ebbs and flows like everybody, but the discipline part is what really, it doesn't rob you of inspiration to have a discipline, right? All you're doing is consistently tapping into something that's there
Yeah.
by discipline instead of waiting around for inspiration. I used to work in his early days with Andy Schaff, and he was a prolific writer. He just kept writing and writing. He wanted to do a double album once, and I was like, are you sure you want to do a double album? I'm like, I probably had the nerve to say to him, maybe they're not all great, and you should just do a single album. Great, which, foot in my mouth. That guy makes
Right, you might have
incredible
been right.
records every
I mean, who
every
knows?
time he makes them. But I think that's a fantastic discipline. Let me ask you this, because I alluded to it earlier, but I had watched a couple things you had, even like a video you made shortly after I think Katie and Lunchmeat came out, and a couple of interviews you had done. I read about, and I saw an interesting thing in there about creativity, and you were talking about things that you were discovering in your spirituality and wearing that on your sleeve, kind of, and how much that had to do with creativity and how you thought people in general just the way the world has worked in the industrial era for a few hundred years has really robbed us of that. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that and what your own discovery and where that's kind of led you. I mean, the thing I read was a couple of years ago. I mean, I'm just curious really where that has led you.
My thoughts on spirituality, is that kind of?
Yeah, just how that's developed in you from when you kind of were like, I think this is a thing, and then you're able to start articulating it, but you've been living with it for a while.
Still working on articulating it.
Yeah,
I think the more you are try to articulate it, the harder it gets in some ways. It's like, but yes, I would say that what I would loosely call my spiritual life has become more and more important to me. As I get older and go through life, everything feels like it needs to be imbued with spirit to me. And that is why I want to make music. That is why I want to have good relationships. That's why I want to be healthy. That's why I want to be present. That's why I meditate. That's why I write in my journal in the morning. It's like I want to be here for my life, ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to miss it. And so the discipline of creating art, the discipline of songwriting, the discipline of musicianship, all of these things I want to have more of it in my life. And at the same time, because there are seasons to things and things do ebb and flow, if I'm going to rest, I would like to be disciplined in that as well. I would not like to spend my restful hours staring at my phone. I would like to spend it doing something that genuinely feels restful to me, whether that's actually laying around, or maybe that's exercising, or maybe that's volunteering, or whatever it is. It's like I'm just like always reminded how short, how precious this life we have is. It just seems like the most important thing to me. And the other thing that helps with is I obviously do care about the career, the business, all these things. I care about them a lot because I need to make money, and because I want to have a life, and maybe I want to have a family someday, and who knows. But at the same time, when I can ground myself in that side of my life, the spiritual side of my life, all that doesn't matter to me as much, and I can take it a little less seriously. Does that make sense? I didn't say too much, but
no, I think that was I think that's really incredible. I mean, yeah, I think that's really thoughtful. I don't know that a lot of people talk about them in a way that they could comfortably talk about it being so blended, if I can put it that way, right? I think some people may be on some version of a journey, or some people may feel like some parts of their personal exploration is making its way into their music a little bit, and that's still not the same as it clearly is the person. Do you know what I mean by that? Like, I mean, you can work on your personal exploration, and sometimes that comes out as subject matter in your songs, right? Or your art. You may be a painter or whatever it may be, but then you meet artists, and it's that version of, oh man, those people more live and breathe what they're saying all the time. Like, you get a sense that it's not just an excavation for the sake of being able to make some art with it. It's an actual full embodiment journey. And so when you said, does that make sense? I'm like, it makes perfect sense, because I read little bits enough about you to want to ask the question. And that totally captures to me what I expected and hoped. I think it's very cool approach, and and even what you said at the start of, I don't know if I still am articulating it. I think it's, for me in my life, it's because the deeper I usually dig, the bigger it gets. So for me to expect to be able to articulate it better over time, it's actually the reverse. It's going to get harder, because the more I learn, the bigger it feels. I'm swimming in a bigger pool all the time and take myself less seriously. But
yeah, exactly.
I love all that.
The first page of the Tao Te Ching says the Tao that you can name is not the Tao, right? And
Mm,
I think you could replace Tao with anything. The God that you can name is not God. You can't. You can try. You can try to talk about it, but talking about it is not the direct experience of it. And talking about creativity is not the experience of creativity, right? By the
mm.
same, in the same lens. Um, it's
Fuck,
fun to
that's good.
talk.
Yeah.
It's fun to talk about, and I love talking about it. But I more and more lately, I've been less interested in talking about it and more interested in just doing it. And that's always been the case, but for a while, initially, like especially 5 years ago when I was really getting into starting this project, it's like I was like bursting with this like, you guys, like your creative practice
Mm.
can be your spiritual practice. It's the same thing. And now I'm kind of like, I don't know. I feel like I've accepted that in more of a big way, but also have found a lot more nuance in it than just that. And I'm still kind of working out all my thoughts, but it all comes down to just trying to be as present as you can, and then
Yeah.
showing up for your whatever your practice is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
Yeah, I totally get that. So you shift through all of that. I guess I'm curious where that puts you right now, talking a little bit about that sort of journey that you kind of are on and discovering yourself that way. You know, you make this first record that is kind of a shift away from what you were, and you're like, I need to not take it so seriously. You start writing, you make a record. That record gets legs really quick for you, to the point where I'm assuming you probably assembled a team and everything, you know, in the business terms for most up and comers, relatively quick.
Not kind of. I actually did it myself for, besides I had a label. The label found me quickly, and but like I did like everything myself until May of last year, like managerial wise and even
Okay.
accounting wise and everything,
Mm,
until I was like just about just about ready to lose it because it fully got to be like all consuming, and it really was seriously detrimental to my creative
mm,
practice and thus my spiritual life. And it was just like the whole thing was feeling very wrong. And then, just as luck might have it, I very randomly got a message from this manager who was not offering to manage me. She was just like, "Hey, cool music." And I was like, "Thanks." And I was like, "I kind of recognize your name." Then I went and looked her up. I was like, "Oh shit, she's a pretty well-known music manager." And then I was like, "Hey, do you know I don't have a music manager? Would you like to chat?"
mm.
And then she's like, "Oh, I assumed you did. Like, yeah, let's chat." And then so for the past, I guess, year and 3 months now, I've had actual full compliment, and it's been
Mm.
so good. I've been
Oh, I
so
bet.
I've been so happy for it. I mean, I'm so impressed by people who can really just like run their whole business and do all, but the more help I've gotten with all that, the better my actual inner life has felt. So I'm super, super grateful for it.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Hmm.
I mean, so you came out of, I'm wondering in the middle of, actually, this isn't the question I'm going to ask. The question I really wanted to ask was, you explained a whole bunch of this stuff. You know, even what you're just talking about now is like, there's a lot of the business side of this stuff that it's awesome that you do or can do as long as you can. But like everybody hits a point, it's different for everyone probably. So, but you talked about sort of that achieving this place of balance and uh, being present and all this. I'm wondering what parts, and maybe these are the parts you were just talking about, but what parts of being a full-time artist are the ones that actually make it really hard to be a full-time artist?
Yeah. I think touring. I really like touring, but I think a lot of people find it really, really hard. It can be really hard on your relationships. It
Mm,
can be hard on your body. It can be dangerous. It can be really, really not fun sometimes, like soul crushing and pointless. And
yes. Yeah.
it looks, the internet makes it look glamorous. Not many people are going to post about the empty rooms, but there, most artists have empty rooms sometimes. It happens. So
Yeah.
That
And
can
that you
that can be
spent a
hard.
whole day, doing who knows what to get to those 2 hours that were supposed to be special in who knows where to play an empty room. Like,
Yeah. Which is why I will say I'm extremely grateful for my band and I love touring with them because
mm,
it doesn't matter if there's two people there. Sometimes when there's two people there, that's when we play our best show because we all just love playing with each other and everyone's such a great musician and we just go for it every single time. That being said, the financial reality of playing to two people with a five-person band and a sound tech is not possible to maintain. So
yeah,
I try to do less of those. I'm doing a little more solo touring now, which I find I don't really like it that much, to be honest. But I'm trying my best to make it. It's mostly just that I don't really feel great about my show, so I'm trying to make my show better when I play
mm,
solo. Yeah, I
yeah,
think that can
definite
be hard.
trade-offs, right?
I think
Yeah,
the money can be really hard, to be honest. It's like you can sometimes just spend so much money. You feel like you're making money, but you're not.
mm,
It can be really confusing and hard to deal with, and people can I can people can get themselves into pretty seriously bad financial situations, just debt wise and everything, and because people tell you you have to do this and that, and maybe you don't, or maybe you do, but maybe it didn't work out. You took a gamble, didn't work. These things
yeah,
happen. I think money can be really hard on people, and then I think that social media, which we talked about before, trying to make all this stuff all the time, and then also just like being constantly perceived online, I think can be really hard on you. So these are some of the more
yeah,
challenging things I would say. I think for some
yeah,
people, just to add one more thing, I think for some people, lack of structure it can be really, really bad for their mental, spiritual, physical well-being. Like you're working your day job and you're doing your artist thing on the side, and you're just dreaming about that day when you can just wake up and do whatever you want all day. Well, it turns out doing whatever you want all day is a good way to do nothing all day.
yeah. Well,
Unless you
and
have that practice where you're like, "Oh, I know I can't go for brunch because I
well,
work at
that's yeah.
10 in the morning." That's the approach I try to take. But
Well, I mean, that's exactly it. I in my life in like digital graphic design history, I used to pay the bills through a lot. I've always experienced the thing that young designers or artists of any kind don't realize, which is how incredibly paralyzing a blank canvas can be to to people.
totally.
And I would rather like give me some limitations and boundaries or structure, as you said, even something I have to try to excel within and grow out of, and give me some friction, to get things working.
Totally.
But you're right, structure is really hard on, or lack of structure is really hard on people.
Can I tell you about something that changed my life?
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
please
and
do.
this is something I still do regularly. It's this thing that my friend Natalie Bourne, who is actually my roommate currently, Natalie, and her partner Eric are in this great band called Slow Spirit. And Natalie brought this creative practice thing into our friend group that we used to call it Song Club, but now we call it Song Every Week. And what it is one person organizes it. They invite like a group of people, and then a group of songwriters typically. But you could do it with any art, whether it's like literary or visual or whatever. But the point is, every Tuesday, we do Tuesdays. I don't know. You can do any day. It doesn't matter. But we do it every Tuesday night. You have to submit something that you call finished. It can be 30 seconds long. It can be 3 minutes long. It can be instrumental. It can be just a cappella. It can be whatever it is, but it has to be finished to you. You have to submit that to her before you go to sleep on Tuesday night. And then every week, then she makes a playlist of
Mm.
all of the submissions. And the only thing that happens if you don't submit is that you're out of the group for that month. So it's just this self-imposed thing because it's really fun to be a part of because you get to hear what all these other people are making, and sometimes there's really cool
Yeah,
people in the group. Like there's been times when there's been some pretty like well-known musicians and artists in the group, and it's like very private. There's some other rules too, but um, It's really fun. I've run them for my friends sometimes. I've sometimes kept them going for months. And it's just like a way to have that accountability with yourself and but also like in a musical community.
Yeah.
And that's been super fun. That is sort of I mean, did my practice grow out of that or was that I'm not really sure. I've always found it pretty easy. Some people find it really does not work for the way their creative mind works. Like I have a
Hmm.
friend who is incredibly prolific, but he doesn't make stuff like that. It's like one
Hmm.
month he makes like 50 songs, and then he doesn't make anything for 2 months. And that's just how he works. And it's not like he has a problem finishing songs. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm just like, well, this isn't for you. But for me, I like just like plugging away at something. You know, I love
Hmm.
that. Makes me happy.
Yeah. My ADHD probably falls with your friend more, where I just
Yeah,
have ridiculous bursts and then
that's
and
cool.
then
Like,
they're
there's nothing
not
wrong
there.
with that. That's the thing. That's why doing these podcasts that probably are really interesting for you, and also like listening to artists talk about their process is fascinating. Like, I love listening. I love just hearing about everyone's different ways they do things. Like, some writers come out with a new book every year and a half, and others take a decade. And it doesn't mean that one of their books is better than the other book. It's just like that's what you
Yeah.
had to do. So I guess if
I've
anyone.
spent so much time asking people advice, and I'm a pretty ballsy guy. So I've spent a lot of my life just asking people who have reputation or whatever, like some advice and I'm always looking for some tidbit. And I think subconsciously I assumed there would be something there that would tell me this is the way. And then if I asked three people, I'd probably get the same answer. And then it would confirm for me that this is the way. And all that ever happened was that the answers were all different. They were usually terribly simplified, and terribly custom to themselves and who they were. And all it ever taught me was listen to everybody's experience, find some companionship in more in the we're all just figuring out how to be who we are, rather than assume that there's some blueprint that I'm missing that will help me out. And that's a lot of why I'm interested in doing the podcast too, because I think that's the veil I want to pull back
Hmm,
for people, is that there's not a blueprint, but if you are willing to listen, there's tons of things to learn from everybody, and you might
totally.
just find some solace, in someone who does it similar to you, and you're not crazy. So,
Yeah. I definitely think advice is worth being skeptical of. I just think, but I also am
yeah,
the same. I've like obsessively have asked for advice, listened to podcasts, listened to this and that. And every once in a while, something comes along that I'm like, whoa, that is some good advice. And then it actually does, maybe it does actually change my life. But so many things have to be in the right spot for a piece of advice to hit you. You have to be ready for that. It has to be all the stars have to align. So my favorite piece of advice that I've ever gotten is just to just keep doing it. Don't give up. Just go.
I hear a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Liam, and I appreciate some transparency and honesty, and just the way you approach just chatting with me about creativity, which isn't as fun as being creative, I know,
No, I'm
but
not sure about that.
it means a lot.
Sometimes doing the thing is also not fun. I do like chatting about it, so thanks for asking the good questions. Yeah.
No, I really appreciate it. I appreciate your time, and I'm looking forward to seeing you when you come around or out on the road, and touching base, and maybe giving you a real life handshake at some point would be awesome too. So I appreciate you. Thanks for all of this, and we'll talk again
Thanks.
soon.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Liam. You bet.
Hey, I'm Alexi. Stick around for post fame with me and my dad.
Okay, well, we're back on season 2, and welcome back to Post Fame. I'm Glenn. This is Alexi.
Hey.
Hi. Coming back in with season 2 wrap-ups of our episodes. We probably had the best conversational gold before I hit record just now. So we just covered like that I gave you a bad hairline, and to make sure that you were wearing pants. And then you brushed the screen with a brush, and then we changed the microphone with, we did some ASMR on your little microphone. Anyhow, so we've really covered a lot of bases before I even hit record, but that's kind of the nature of what we do. Yeah. Okay. So we're back and we're happy, and we've got all these episodes. I can't wait to roll out to people and some really cool people. And starting off season 2 with Boy Golden, Liam, who I had been, trying and looking forward to talking to a long part of the way through season 1, and was really excited when the opportunity kind of lined up to have a conversation, which was pretty cool. And I guess sort of serendipitous, I see, is that this is Folkfest weekend.
I was just going to say that.
And it was last year that we got to watch Boy Golden have a couple performances. I thought, obviously his own concert that they always have at a folk fest was great. Really great. That was on, see, how many years have we been going? And I still forget the proper stage numbers. But it was the big one that's kind of in between. Do you know that one I mean?
I know what you're talking about.
So it wasn't stage, I think, 6, or the one that's at the very end by the food tent. But then there's the one in the middle that kind of has usually the biggest grass area. Anyhow, I that's what I remember distinctly of his own show. But then I also remember one of the best part about folk fests is the side stage, the collabs. Yeah, that's what we would call them. They call them workshops, and I don't know how they qualify as workshops still to this day. But they're definitely collabs, which are fun, and he totally killed it there with. I don't know if he had all of his band or a good portion with him. Anyhow, and here we are talking about him exactly a year later after.
I was gonna bring up the fact that prior to Folkfest, I always make my Folkfest playlist and take all the names of the people and add 2 to 3 of their songs. And then the weeks leading into Folkfest, I shuffle it on all my drives and whatnot. And it always ends up with me not pulling a Glen and missing a really good artist that I'll have regrets about later. You know what I mean?
Shots fired. Wow.
So
fair, but okay.
No, totally fair. But I remember last year, I had added, he was one of the few artists where I had added the name, and I'm like, this sounds familiar, but I'm not familiar with the music. And then listened and was like, I need to see this live kind of thing. And it really paid off, I think. So then, I was thinking, and I remember we were talking when you started the podcast about possible guests, and we were kind of running through who have we seen at Folkfest in the past few years who would be cool guests, if this podcast thing happened. And I think he was also one of the names that was kind of first dropped by you and I of wouldn't it be kind of cool if we had Boy Golden on the podcast? So I think that was really fun.
100%. I just knew that there was more of a story that I wanted to find out because
he fit vibe.
In. Well, vibe for sure. And that's, and I don't know. Then I guess this is what we'll find out. I felt that there was definitely, his vibe was very clear and present in the conversation about exactly what it would be like to just, sit down at a food court with him and talk, or I don't know why I said food court, but definitely the fact that, I think he got on a lot of people's radar for the song KD and Lunch Meat, which hit alt rock radio and did really, really well and kind of became a fixture. And it was one of those common instances where a band has a song like that kind of satisfies wider tastes. So it gets on the radio, but then the rest of their music maybe would never hit the radio the same way.
Yeah.
And then I get really curious about what kind of artists they really are. So,
yeah.
But I think that definitely got satisfied when you watch him play. There's just a lot of soul and a lot of different musical influence and inspiration in what he does. And it's definitely the way he likes to play with people. But anyhow, I'll let you, I know you took some notes.
That leads in because there's kind of two things that I picked up on, and you kind of just led into both of them equally. But the first thing, which is
called serendipity, by the way.
That's called.
I'm good at it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the first thing was just small note, but I was I thought it was really interesting when he was talking about how his KD song was the one that hit the radio, and then how he kind of was talking for a few minutes about how it's like the songs he doesn't expect to like kind of blow up or do well that do, and then the ones where and he said it's so funny, and I can't remember the word, but the tone of his voice, he was like, I just wrote a banger, and it was like so funny.
Yeah,
and then he's like, and he's like, it never turns out to be that song. And I just think that's so true with like all kind of forms of art, and you hear it so many times, especially with like bands who like get big, like really 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 huge bands who like their random song gets really viral, and then everyone at the concerts wants to hear it like played 3 times in a row, and then they're on tour for long enough and they get sick of it, and then they just like stop playing it, and the people are mad. But they're like, we don't even really like that song. Like, we don't want to play that all the time. Like, we didn't expect that.
First of all, most people just really, really want to hear it in the concert. You're the one that wants to hear it 3 times in a row because you play songs over and over. Okay. We've established that. Yeah. But no, I totally think you're right. And it reminds me of, like, you just referenced it. I've heard so many like interviews with artists, or even like, when they talk to a band about their big breakout song 20 years down the road, and you find out that like, because there's so many people in the process, right? When they're a bigger band with a label and there's like a lot of people in the chain making decisions, and you hear them say, oh, the label wanted me to release this song and I didn't want to release this song. We thought it was going to be another song, and then they decided to put this one out, and then it became the hit. So like there's all kinds of lore about that happening in the business. So, and then he kind of has his own experience with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought that was so real though, because you hear it so much from like big artists. I think it's like just interesting for me to hear it from like an artist who's not like, the size of like the Lumineers, because I've heard them say it for sure, and like just those like mass
a middle class artist. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, like it's, it's true for like everyone. So I thought that was really interesting. And then the other piece was kind of the conversational part, which you were just like mentioning of like you can sit down in a food court, is like the quote I wrote down, and it was the only one, was like, it was right at the end and you guys were chatting, and then he like kind of like almost cuts you off and just goes, can I tell you about something that changed my life? And I just think that's so funny. And it also just like, I don't know, from what I got from like the whole podcast episode is like so him, of just like hey, can I just like tell you something that changed my life? And I love that he jumped in like that and like kind of started his own little chat. But it was with his friends doing song of the week, kind of that song club, and just getting something on paper and having to submit it, and then the accountability of like, if you don't, you're out for the month, and like so there's like kind of a pressure put on you. And I thought
which works if it's a cool kids club. So you don't want to get kicked out. So they've obviously now it obviously to me is a cool club if nobody wants to get kicked out of it.
Right? Yeah. Other people would be like, oops, didn't submit a song, like see you next month. No, but there was 2 parts that I really liked, and like one, and you and I have talked about this, is like just like getting stuff down on paper, because like you and I have talked about how important it is to just like journal and write and get thoughts down. And I really just like that he does that, but also that he like talks about how it can be a struggle. I just thought that was like vulnerable and real, because like I think that's so true, and it's true for an artist his size, which is interesting too.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a struggle, but at the same time, he was just so clear that it was a discipline, right? Mm-hmm. It was like he didn't talk about it like he was in the middle of the struggle. He talked about like, this is just what I do. Yeah. And I guess the part that's surprising to me when I hear that is you just expect a lot of artists, but especially an artist sort of in his very kind of laid back style of music, you expect a little more of that hippie ethos of just like, I just write songs and I pull them out of the universe, right? And then they come together, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't. But no, he's like, I get up and I go to the studio, not because I have an idea, but for the discipline of writing and recording on, multiple days a week. And he gets up and he writes in a journal every day, and he does stream of consciousness writing, and that's the part I don't know if you could tell, like it definitely changed my energy when him and I started talking about some of that, and he said a couple of things that really caught me, and I think there's even once in the conversation where I was just like, oh man, that's good, because it just really impacted me. I think because just where I'm at, I've felt like
I've been using the phrase with everybody, I need to start closing some tabs in my head. Like I just have too many tabs open in my head. And I've heard a lot of people talk about the discipline of writing before, and I'm terrible at any version of those disciplines. I always have been. I've just kind of rebelled against them. And yeah, here I was. And well, I guess the summary, here's the big point, is that after him and I recorded this episode, I started getting up and writing.
Well, and that's what I was going to say, is like, you were talking about you doing that. And, like, I obviously have, like, 4 journals on my bedside table. But, like, you and I were kind of relating.
I've read them all. They're great. It's great stuff.
Get out of here. You're not funny. You're not funny at all, actually. But, like, you and I did relate about how hard it is to, like, have that. You know what I mean? Like, I'm so bad for it. Like, I date all my journal stuff. And, like, you'll have, like, a good solid 3 weeks where I'm just sending it every night. And I'm, like, and then there's just, like, a 8-month gap in there, and I'm like, oh, like, wow, I suck. But I like the accountability that they have to each other.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah, I do too. And there was, he sort of hinted towards some things that I've been reading and listening to that other people who have been inspiring me lately have said. And it's about this idea of like not editing yourself and in the creative process. And then retrospectively, sort of like what you're saying with your journals, like I've got years of, if I'm being really honest, probably regrets of not finishing creative work or ambitions or goals because that narrative in my head allowed me to edit myself and not do things unless I thought they were a certain thing I wanted or they were good enough, really, most of the time. And that's regretful. And I'm just at a place where I don't want that. And then I see, and he just felt so inspiring to me in that he doesn't edit himself. He just lets the ideas go and he gets to the end of them, and the ones that have something for him to go back to and to work on, then he works on. But the discipline and the habit, and this is the point actually I wanted to make, Lex, that was even bigger. That was the part that also really inspired me. Is that if you really want to dig in with somebody, you want to ask why, right? Yeah. Why is it so important to you? Like, why is the discipline there for so long? Like, what's the payoff? And he was like, the payoff is that I want to be healthy. Yeah. The payoff is like doing this like helps me. Yeah, it helps me deal with a bunch of stuff. It helps me deal with what's in my head. It keeps me accountable to the thing that matters to me. And then I start to apply the same discipline to these other habits. And he's trying to like eat better or be better in different ways. And he said, just so that I can be present, I think he sort of summarized these different things. And he's like, I just want to be present for my life. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, who doesn't want that, And when someone gives you sort of this was the road that I actually found to get there, you can't help but stop and think maybe there's something on that road I should be paying attention to for myself. Yeah. So, and I just love that kind of inspiration. And then I think I just felt really, really lucky to get that conversation. The unlucky part of the conversation, which I don't mind sharing here, is that I lost like the last 15 minutes of it. Yeah. And I'm so unlucky and I'm so sad. Now, the truth was that at least when I listened back, it wasn't the same stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like he was talking a little bit about what's coming up and some shows, and that he's going to be at Edmonton at this new like little mini folk fest in September, which is kind of interesting. But he's going to be with Kat Clyde, who we've talked about on the show that Grant Lawrence first recommended. And she was a part of writing a bunch of songs on the record that he's just finished. And so we kind of missed a bunch of that. So that's the unlucky part that I was disappointed in, but that's life.
That is life.
That is life. So
what a good conversation.
Good conversation. Good way to start. Lots of things in there. I mean, I'm always hoping that there's things for people who are still in the chase, who are still wanting to either at the start of how do I do music? How do I try to make it a career? You want to pull something from somebody who appears to be doing it successfully. And I think he gave us so much
to learn and to think about and be inspired by. So I'm super appreciative. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it a lot.
I like it.
I like it.
I like it a lot. You're too young, and the movie Dumb and Dumber was never part of the canon of theater that I thought I should teach you. There's lots of other great movies I made sure you watched, but
I grew up only mentioning some niche little movies that no one knew. And
sorry about that.
I'm thankful.
But as a result, you and I got to go see the new Wes Anderson flick because now we have a shared love of Wes Anderson. So it paid off for me.
You want to hear my hot take actually about that film really quick?
Oh, have you been thinking about a hot take?
It's not a hot take specifically about the film. I would not go see it twice. I loved it. I thought it was so good, and I thought watching it was so great, and especially that we got to do it at Metro. But I don't think it's a film I'd be like, yeah, it's still playing this week. Let me go to Metro a second time to watch it again.
Okay, so also help me because it's called The Phoenician Scheme. See, I keep losing the last word, and I'm like, did I hate the movie? Because I can't even remember.
Can't even remember
that. But I didn't hate the movie at all. Like that's a good hot take. I get that. I mean, the opening scene on the plane was so perfectly.
Oh,
the
it was
color
so Wes Anderson
and the
good.
Symmetry was so perfect. Yeah. So immediately my heart was warm. You want to know what my hot take was? I kind of fell asleep in the middle.
Really?
Yeah, and so here's my bigger hot take. That's not the first Wes Anderson movie that I fell asleep in. And the thing about it is, like, I love his movies so much, but I've fallen asleep.
I think I've said this. I said his beginnings and his endings are incredibly dramatic and really draw you in. The middles of his movie are just so thick with plot and information that sometimes it's just like, wow, this is a little bit long.
You're right. And I think that's the perfect way to put it. I think the middle of his movies, he loves setting up all these different characters. And these characters obviously
are so good.
Yeah, and they have backstory and they're weaving together right away, but you don't know how deep that goes until the payoff all the time. But you never get the payoff until the end, which means in the middle his chosen process is usually just to keep trudging through all of the details on everybody and it puts this guy to sleep somehow. I don't know what it is. And it might have just been I was really tired and the popcorn was really good. So
and it was late.
It was a later show, but that it was 9:00. And so if I actually say it was late, then people are going to call me grandpa. So I don't want to do that. Well, that's our hot take. We don't even have to do a musical hot take because we just shared with people a different art form hot take. And I'm sure we'll have a lot more hot takes to talk about some bands that we got to see live after Folkfest. And one thing I'm going to start doing for everybody to know, I've pulled together a little series I'm going to do on social media, I think, of concerts that inspired me that I still have on my phone. I've recorded obviously lots of clips and scenes from a lot of shows, but I it's like I post them to my stories and then I dump them from my phone.
Yeah.
Now I'm feeling maybe that isn't a very good plan because I am lacking a lot of shows that I would have wanted to share a clip from and talk about. Anyhow, the greater purpose of it is I've just had a run of seeing some great shows. I'm just feeling re-inspired by going to live shows, right?
Yeah.
In that I think everybody needs to go watch bands play their songs or artists sing their songs in person to actually feel them and understand them the way that they wanted to deliver them. And if you want to really feel music, like you have to see live music. And I'm just going to start getting on that soapbox. This is now my soapbox for that. So I'm sorry, everybody. Not sorry, but okay. Yeah. Okay. That's it. That's all.
See you tomorrow at Folkfest.
See you tomorrow at Folkfest. Thank you.
Or see you on the hill.
Oh, that's what they say. See you on the hill. Very well done. Apropos.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Love you.
Love you. Bye.